What is meant by destructive and non-destructive editing? Well, luckily with programs such as Affinity Photo and Photoshop, you can add adjustment layers such as this. I'm going to add in a recolor just as an example. And you see up here how it added a layer, right? And then I can go in here and make some adjustments, right? And now, obviously, I can go back to this by clicking on it and make other adjustments. It is non-destructive. Same thing goes for when I do it like a Gaussian blur. I can increase the Gaussian blur, right? But I can go back to either of those just by clicking on one or the other. I can go back to this one and change it to green, and go back to the Gaussian blur and change it to, I don't know, a lesser value. Point being that this is non-destructive. Now, I want you to look over here on the right-hand side, and I'll talk my way through it. On the left-hand side, I'm clicking to burn. I want to use the burn tool. So almost all these tools over here are really destructive. It doesn't mean permanent 100% destructive, but you'll see what I mean in a moment. So let's say with the burn tool selected and with that layer activated, I can go in here and let's just say do that. So that was my first edit, right? Look at that. That's my first edit. And I go over here on her face and I do some other edits, and that's my second edit. And I go over here and I click on all these things over here. Really disastrous, right? That's my third edit. Well, the problem is, let's say I loved my third edit and it took me hours to do, whatever it was, but I wanted to get rid of 2 or 1. Well, the problem is the only recourse I have is to do Control Z, as in undo, or go to history and do the undos from there. If I wanted to keep edit 3 and get rid of 2, well, how do I do that? I hit Control Z as in undo, and undo again and undo again. So that one's gone, but I wanted to keep that, but I'm trying to get rid of this one. Well, you can't do that. That's what is meant by destructive editing. So now I'm going to show you a way to do burning and dodging where it is non-destructive. So now what we're going to do is we're going to add a pixel layer. And there it is. It's above this other layer. In fact, it's the top one. So that means anything I add to this pixel layer is going to be on top of everything else. Fine. So now I'm going to go to the fill tool. And instead of using white, I'm going to go, and by the way, if you look up here on the right-hand side, I don't want RGB, I want grayscale. And as an example here, if I pick down here, which is what, 15%, that's really dark. If I go to way up here, it's 88%, that's really light. I want 50%, so I'm going to use my mouse to get 50%, click, and you're saying, well, what's the point of that? Well, now if I go to the blend mode, I'm going to go to overlay. And what does it look like? It looks exactly like the original. If I turn this off, turn this on again, you'll see that 50% gray, when overlaid, the pixels are unaffected, the image is unaffected. So now, if I simply go back to my default foreground and background colors, click D, and I go to a brush, and let's say I want to burn in a certain area, no problem. I can go and change the opacity up here to something lower there, and now I can make this a lot bigger, right? So now I can go in here. I'm just going to do an extreme example as well as I did before, right? So this looks horrible, right? But here's the thing. I can go to that layer, which is this pixel layer. Again, it's an overlay of the gray, and I hit Alt and click on it, and you'll see that those are my edits, right? But we don't like them. However, we can change this as much as we want because it is non-destructive. So what do I mean by that? So I'm going to change the brush by hitting X to go white, and maybe reduce the opacity a bunch and the flow a bunch, right? And then now I can kind of just go back in here and tweak it as much as I want. And you see that I can bring it back to the original in a non-destructive fashion.